House, the President of the Literary and Scientific Society, Daniel Isabella.
Members of the House, I welcome you to what is the 8th ordinary meeting of the 177th session of the Literary and Scientific Society. Now, we're a very active society, as you all know, and can I just say, what a great turnout it is tonight. I'm fully expecting, if anyone else comes late, that there'll be 4 guys on the roof trying to lower them down just to get into here. But, no, it's great to see you all here, and if you're new, you're very welcome. You'll notice that we had some lovely term cards printed out in your seat. Don't worry if you didn't grab one. We've also got a big QR code up there. It tells you all that we're doing and all we've got planned in the future as well. We had on Monday BP sparring sessions, and we had a great workshop for the chamber debate. And as many of you know, for the Godkin competition, which is open to all newcomers, the motion is on prisons, and it will be held next Wednesday. I believe that is the 12th of November. We've also, on the topic of BP sparring, we've got a BP competition coming up for novices as well. So if you're new to speaking, you're very much encouraged to take part. Don't worry, I was in your shoes. I took part in my first BP competition this year as well, so you're very much encouraged to do so, and it's great fun. And that is on the weekend of the 29th. We have the Irish novices. Yep, the weekend of the 29th. Yep. So the weekend of the 29th, we have the Irish novices, where you get to go down to Dublin. They throw a very nice social as well. So we've got so many things planned, and a lot more exciting things that I can't wait to tell you, but we'll have to wait until the end of tonight. But first of all, I've been telling you a lot of things. I'm sure you all know a lot of things about me personally. So now it is time for President's Questions, which is your chance to ask me any question your heart desires, albeit they cannot be political or about my sex life or lack thereof. So, shall we get into President's Questions? Yes, Flynn? Oh, for breakfast this morning. So, I woke up this morning and intrinsically, I thought I'll go for something cold. So I thought I'd have some fantastic potassium or, some happy looking circles. Or wait, no, Special K and Cheerios. But rather, instead of milking those jokes, because I do, I am a serial pun teller, as you all know, or a serial killer, based on the reaction of the room. But instead, I decided to go for something nice and warm, because it was quite cold out this morning. So I had some alphabetic spaghetti, but there must have been a malfunction in the factory, because they were all the letter O, whatever that was about. So do we have any other President's Questions? Yes?
How much can you bench?
How much can I bench? I've not been to the gym since maybe lower sixth, and my PB for benching probably hasn't changed much since lower sixth either, so couldn't tell you, Reuben. Not as much as you, or as much as Chloe rather. She can bench a fair amount herself. Any other President's Questions? Yes, Mr. Spratt?
Did Bethany make your alphabetical breakfast?
She did not. She did, however, make other people's dinner in this room. She made quite a few people lasagna. However, my lasagna was courtesy of the Grey Steel Eurospar. Any other President's Questions? Yeah, we'll go Veronica at the back there.
Oh, thanks. Is this political on what your thoughts about the Cheney passing?
Yeah, that would be political, I think, yeah. Save it for private members' business, perhaps. Elijah, did you have a question?
Yeah, if you were to put your clothes in a washing machine, and don't turn it on, is that kind of doing your washing?
What is a washing machine? I'm not quite sure what that contraption is. I don't know.
You guys all your
Washing? Any other President's Questions? Yes, Mr. He's lost. No, none is too stupid.
No.
Yep.
Nope.
Go on.
You raise your hand.
Would you rather be a washing machine or a tumble dryer?
Again, so many of these words that I've never heard of before. I don't know. A tumble dryer sounds fun though, so probably a tumble dryer, because I can often go around in circles as well. Any other President's Questions? Yes, David.
What is your skincare routine?
Oh, I've actually been criticised for my skincare routine, or lack of a skincare routine. If I was actually trying, I'd put maybe moisturiser on or something after I wash my face, and that was about it. To be perfectly honest, yeah. Any other President's Questions? Come on. I heard some big talk about President's Questions coming up today, and You're letting me down here. Any other president's questions? Yes, Stuart. My hair routine. As simple as my skincare routine. I mean, the thing about my hair is, like, I was born with a Pythagoras theorem on my head since I was, like, born. So I've not really had to change much. You could literally give me a buzz cut like I had over COVID and it would still go back into a triangle the next day. So that is my hair routine. Any other present? Yes, Craig.
What is your favourite thumb?
Like out of the two thumbs?
Yeah, which one?
Probably right one. Yeah. Yes, Rocka?
How fast can you run a 3K?
Oh, 3K.
Yeah.
That's a good question. It's if you this is sound really cocky, but if you look up my name, right? Yeah, if you look up my name, there should be like an athletics NI number that says all of my PBs for various distances as well as 3K because I did actually used to run.
I've looked it up and it's given me Tinder profile. Salt one as well.
No. Well, unlike the races I ran back in the day, Matthew, I don't have anyone chasing after me at the minute. Any other president's questions?
This is the first image that comes up when you Google Daniel Dominic.
That was definitely not me. Yes. Any other president's questions, or shall we move on? Yes, Mr. Spratt.
What are your thoughts on shirtless awesome men?
Yeah, no thoughts on shirtless Austin Butler. Can't say I have any. Are we going to end it on shirtless Austin Butler? Okay, no, Reuben, yes.
What's your favourite dinosaur?
Oh, Triceratops. 3 horns. Class. I loved Dino Dan back in the day. Like, it's class. Yeah. Any other president's questions? Okay, so we'll move on to private members' business. This is your chance as members of the House to raise anything you saw in the news recently. They can be political as well and get the thoughts and opinions of others in the House on that story. So we'll start with Veronica. I think I know what this one's going to be.
What are people's opinions on Dick Cheney passing?
Okay.
Or just Dick Cheney in general?
Dick Cheney, the legacy of Dick Cheney. Mr. Hoy.
I think it's been a sad week for the world, and that Dick Cheney contributed a huge amount to mankind, and we should be very, very sad that he's gone.
Anyone else on Dick Cheney? Yeah, we'll go to Mr. Spratt.
I think it's very sad, obviously, the passing of Dick Cheney, and any human being is a very sad thing, but just I thought it was interesting to note. I watched a documentary on New Labour, and Tony Blair said that in his meeting with George Bush about the Iraq War, it was one of the most bizarre political things he had ever seen. A US president using the British Prime Minister to persuade the US Vice President to allow the US President to go to war. That was Tony Blair's own words. So I thought that was quite interesting about Dick Cheney.
It's quite interesting, yeah. Thank you. Anyone else on Dick Cheney or Iraq? Now that we've opened that door.
It's what you were saying about many contributions in his very long, very detailed life. Including the fact that in 2006 on a hunt trip, he shot his mate in the, I think it was in the heart, in the chest of the face, with about 30 pounds of buckshot. All of them, well, 20 years ago for complications. And all 30 pounds which hit him. Keep in mind, this was one of his closest friends, and on a hunting trip, because that scene was, giving animal, per se.
Interesting. Anyone on hunting Dick Cheney and Iraq? Yes?
Do you think that jet fuel melts steel beams?
Oh dear. Okay, I think we'll avoid that one. Is there any other piece of private members' business?
I was going to talk about how Dick Cheney is only the second US Vice President to shoot someone while he's Vice President. The first one was Aaron Burr.
Ah, there you go. Any Hamilton fans in the room? Nice. Yes, Madam Vice President?
I threaten to kill you all the time.
You do?
Not totally out there. So that makes me sound terrible.
I mean, that in combination with the serial killer documentaries that you've been telling me really excitedly about since last week. Yeah. Okay. I feel like my life is now in danger, but that's besides the point. Any other private members' business? Mr. Farnon?
I've got, if anyone has any comments about the achievements of Case Dharma or lack thereof, we've seen once again another multiple criminals released. Anyone's opinions on Catastrophe, Lammy, or any other actions of the woke Labour government?
Anyone on Labour, Starmer, Lammy? Yes?
Keir Starmer and David Lammy should be put in prison for stupidity.
Okay.
So should you.
Anyone else on that? Yes?
I think the Starmer administration will go down as history as one of the most significant British governments and how quickly it can alienate pretty much every section of its support base.
Here.
Interesting. Anyone else on? Yes, go.
Yeah, I'll just point out that out of like the 3 people that have been accident released, who have willingly handed themselves back in, one of which had a failed attempt where he approached the police officer they refused to recognise him, and he spent about another 24 hours trying to hand himself back in while facing a national manhunt, which started capturing a lot of CCTV, including like a library for some reason.
Fair play, yeah.
It wasn't closed down under Labour.
Anyone else on Labour? Yes?
The achievements of Keir Starmer are very few, but you can say the same about the achievements of the Tories, very few, because you have prisoners being released under the Tory party. I've got a name here, Ryan Newby or something, so yeah, Tories did the same thing.
I feel like we've started our own proxy debate before the main one begins. Anyone on the Tories? No? Okay, we'll take maybe one more piece of private members' business if anyone has it. It can be as silly or trivial as you like. And Mr. Spratt's hand goes up.
I would like to hear the House's thoughts on the election of Zendaya as the New York mayor. Ray's getting her big scent hat on now. She's very excited about this radical left-wing lunatic.
I know, commiserations, Ray, that your favourite candidate, Cuomo, didn't make it. It's always next year. Well, not really. But anyway, yes, Elliot.
I wrote my thoughts down because I was excited for this one, but I'm very hungry, so I might not read them quite as effectively as I imagine. I thought he's a very good speaker, and he did what not a lot of candidates do, particularly Muslim candidates, which is effectively connect with young male voters who are typically becoming more socially conservative. And a lot of those policies and stuff are quite attractive. There is one I'm not a big fan of, which is rent freezes. Because although I like the idea of reducing rent, and I think high rent is a thing like London, Dublin, New York are all facing as a problem, I don't think rent freezes are a very effective measure because they tend to increase the price of non-rent controlled housing and decrease the quantity and quality of available housing. To be fair to him, with the zoning law and NIMBYism, I don't think there's a solution to that because building new houses, which would be pretty much the only effective measure, is for some reason deeply unpalatable to the American voter. And that's the end of my notes, which I've read out in. I'm sure this will be interesting to everyone but me.
Thank you for enlightening us with that, Elliot. Yes, Veronica?
I think with his election, obviously he's going to be Sewell and Cuomo because the Republicans didn't vote for a candidate. I think that shows a pendulum swing back to, you can say leftist or liberal ideology in the U.S. just because I think Trump was right. The government shutdown was impacting a lot of the 4 big elections in the U.S. at the time, not just New York City. But I just think it's showing the swing back to leftism or
yeah.
The other election took place show that leftism isn't actually that probable because the election in Minneapolis on Plaza, who officially Mandela Part 2 was unsuccessful even though they did actually in platform and very simultaneously because Minneapolis and Christian apply, so and affordability platform isn't going to be anything.
Yeah, we'll go to Isabella.
Yeah, I disagree. I think it's showing that because what's happening right now, and I think even the fact of Trump getting elected is evidence of just what's been happening in the United States, I think around the world, is people are realizing that the systems don't work, or that this is not working. And people tried to get, not me, but people tried to give Trump a chance. And Trump's actually failed. It was just shown that he actually like railed against Republicans in a private meeting, basically. Being like, yeah, this is all our fault, because people know that this is our fault, that we're not getting together, the government's been shut down for 7 weeks. So this is a sign that people are realizing that Trump doesn't work, regardless of Trumpism, all the above doesn't. So perhaps something different can work better, because what has been going on has not. And so hopefully, I'm really looking forward to what Zora Ghaly can offer to this debate.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that one of the things, I agree with that, but I think that one of the things that both Trump's campaign and Ghaly's campaign share is that they focused a lot more than certain other American politicians on things that impact people's everyday lives. Even if, this isn't to necessarily endorse one or the other, it's just to say that by making a pillar of their campaign, I'm going to make rent lower, or I'm going to lower the cost of petrol. I think it's showing that it's a lot more effective to do something like that than it is necessarily like, we have to save the city from Islamist terrorists, or we have to save democracy. And whether that is a lesson that other American politicians will learn, I'm not sure, because I think a lot of the analysis of it has been very focused on whether people support ideologically one or the other, and not like that, the fact that that is a crucial piece of the campaign in both cases.
Thank you. We'll take 2 more, so Owen.
I don't think the election itself has changed. I don't think we're in an era of a right populist or left populist. I think we're just in an era of populism in general. I think that the new dynamic is establishment versus populist. It's not anything to do with left or right. Trump is succeeding electorally. Ghaly is succeeding electorally. Those don't cancel each other out. It just proves that established politics, they're not left or right politics, they're still very alive and well. It's just we're in an era of populism generally. Because Ghaly, when he started out his campaign, he was in Trump-voting areas in New York, and he carried them by a very large margin. Most people don't think left or right, but they're seen as someone that speaks to their needs. It doesn't matter coming from the left or the right, it only matters it comes.
Yeah, and then we'll end with Ryan.
I agree a lot with what was just said. I think when it comes, I think we're in some sense it's overreading this, in the sense that one, New York is not a particularly representative part of America. It's like not middle America. It's like an election in Texas where an extremely right-wing candidate is elected, and we're like, this should tell us things about wider America. No, it tells you that it's in a part of America that is ideologically one way. So if the Democrats are running in West Virginia, should they be taking much lessons from what's happening in New York? Probably not. On Elliot's point, and I agree with Elliot about the solution to housing problems, that rent freezes are not necessarily a good way of going about it, or rent controls. What I did find it astonishing in the debate between Cuomo and Ghaly, where Cuomo attacked him, saying, because he's in the rent control property, saying he lives in a $2,000 a month rent control apartment that's meant for poor people. And I was like, a $2,000 a month apartment that's meant for poor people? Does Cuomo understand what being poor is? That poor people can afford $2,000 a month rent? And I think that's kind of probably why he lost.
Thank you. Okay, we'll squeeze in 1 more from Victor. Yep.
Hi. Going back to the line with the politics of it, I remember when I went online and when the results came out for the races that happened on Tuesday in America, I had a friend telling me about this, and the bulk of the race in 2024 was never about trying to create out or create false media about race. It was more about people just felt the need to feel free and they needed to say things, that they wanted to say more things without being stupid. I think that's in a sense of it, we lost a sense of debate at one point, And now it's going back to the same place, so the people who shouted that a lot are now doing the same thing and trying to silence voices, you know, who are against that as well. And so, yeah, and on Houston it's the same thing as well. Even though Houston is very NIMBY, you know, I don't like being NIMBY, you know, I feel, you know, the more housing you provide, and it should be the diverse style of housing, so don't make it just one type. You know, there's more way to at least make the market more clear. That's why I prefer to bring it over to that table. And then you have the selections as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm sure that the Republican candidate from the New York mayoral race will bounce right back like a boomerang. We could call him Jojo Sliwa. But anyway, so concludes our private members' business. So now it is time for, it's great to have Mr. Secretary back from his hiatus. He will be reading the minutes provided by Jack, who read the minutes provided by Matthew, who provided the minutes, who read the minutes provided by Jack, who read the minutes provided by Baker. So to complete the loop, I would like to invite Mr. Secretary to read the minutes from our last week's debate. So to clarify, I haven't read these. I got sent them about 20 minutes ago. I've got absolutely no idea what's in them. Jack Seal wrote them. If you know Jack Seal, you know that they're probably going to be particularly vile. So without further ado, on Thursday, the 30th of October of our Lord's year 2025, the Queen's University Literary and Scientific Society met for the 8th ordinary meeting of the 177th session to debate the motion, "This House would rather be feared than respected." President's questions, we heard from President Emeritus Calvin Black, HLM, otherwise known as Walter White. The last man who crossed you, you melted him down, painted him yellow and stuck him to the ceiling. You probably want to explain that one. And each joke that it makes sense in the Senate room. Jack Steele says, "You are onto me." Luca in the glasses says, "Do you have any preferences in Microsoft Excel? I find it so hard I wouldn't know how to excel in it." Vice President Reagan Thien, "What did you think BBL stood for?" Daniel says, "Big Booty Latino." Fair enough. Jack says, "It actually stands for Brazilian butt lift, according to members. I thought it referred to the Bristol and Birmingham line." Calvin Black said, "What do you think BLT stands for?" You answered bacon, lettuce and tomato, of course. Noel/Liam Gallagher, dressed as Luke Collins, asked what the best Halloween costume you ever dressed up as was. You said, "My dad is a caretaker and I used to help him out, so I have my own boiler suit." Went as Jason Voorhees, Superman culture, jeans and a sports skin, dressed as Death today. "Who is your Lex Luthor equivalent?" "Someone who hates you with a passion." "Bethany," cried the secretary. Reagan Thien said, "What did you have for breakfast this morning?" You said, "A vampire, bat wings, potatoes, monster mash." That wasn't quite a graveyard smash. Harry's friend Reuben said, "Does the president have a go-to scary movie?" He said, "I have a USB stick that my uncle got me. No one wants to know what's on it, but I have full confidence in myself that it is indeed scary." Saw 3, you also said, "It's like seeing my favourite Friday the 13th movie is Jason X." Calvin Black said, "Is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween or Christmas movie?" Christmas, undoubtedly so. Luke Collins/Gallagher Brothers said, "Who would be the final girl boy on council in the horror movie?" You said Beth would make it to the end and that Ray would be the killer, further compounded by what Ray said this evening. And some of you may be wondering what I'm dressed as tonight. No one said anything in response to this, to be honest. There you go. Private members' business. God, how are we only here? Yeah, fair enough. Beth Lynham, the fellow on TikTok not cutting his hair until Man United wins some number games in a row. After 2 years, Man United versus Tottenham, will he cut his hair? James Turish said, "Shame for Tottenham." Daniel said, "As a LFC supporter, I'm ashamed that we have contributed to this. Something I misheard about Daniel making his own saw traps." Luke Collins, "We are doing this so the poor boy can get a haircut." Ella said, "Daniel and Henry glazed LFC for 30 minutes and told Ella her football prediction was wrong." At one point, Daniel started talking about football for so long that I was able to chat to our vice president and start typing again while he was still going. Jack Douglas, Curtis/NYC mayoral election. James Turish said, "Any man who has to announce that they were shot 15 times in the back of a taxi is worthy of my vote." Rana said he should be in charge of the parades. Isabella then asked about Catherine Connolly. Beth Lyman said she may have won the presidency, but she'll never win the All-Ireland Championships. Beth says it too fast, so I never fully hear what she's saying in that Dublin accent of hers. How many people did Martin Craigs pay to vote for Bob Geldof? How many people voted Jim Gavin in the end? And James Turish said, "I bonded with Catherine Connolly over how cold the spuds were." Cormac said, "I enjoyed watching the by-election results over the weekend in Carefully, I think? That one. Ella said, "Interesting how much reform are dictating Labour Party agenda and they're never in the news." Jack Steele said Labour in the news today. Rachel Reeves made yet another mishap. Luke Coyle said reform will be in the next government and that will damage the union broadly. Rana said the Dutch election will reflect across the continent. Luca Glasses said Greens growing and there's fracturing on the left because of Labour's ineptness. Cormac said disappointed to see the Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn U party. Tom said Welsh people are very disenfranchised, like the people of Scotland, and it's an impossible choice for voters. And Flynn Nugent finally said opinion polls are not proportionally representative of the country, except when they support the government, when the argument you are trying to make, of course. Then we had the vote of prior opinion on the proposition. We had 6 votes on the opposition, 28 votes and 8 abstentions, meaning the opposition carries and the motion falls. So by a 2017 West Belfast margin, the opposition have it and the motion falls. President gave an overview of the rules before welcoming the first speaker. First on the proposition was Rosa, who dressed as Megamind. Rosa then gave a uniquely entertaining and comical description of the story of Metro Man and Megamind from the movie Megamind, before returning to more of humanity's greats like Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Joseph Stalin, and these divas efficiently pursued their goals and got everything taken care of. Those who wish to do good just hold themselves back with morals and ethics. Rosa then spoke about how an intimidating and brazen woman wielding keys tightly in the grooves of her knuckles is better defended against dangerous man than positive advice. Bark like a dog, she urged. First on the opposition, we had Luca in glasses, who dressed as Hamlet and was wielding a frying pan. Luca began, I love fear as much as the rest of you. People would often evacuate their bowels at the sight of me. And then we made a return to the glorious Stalin. Stalin, we love him, we cried. A true classic, apart from all the things that he did. Luca gave an interesting and colourful account of how fear, isolation and paranoia resulted in the death of Stalin, Hitler and the failure and Mao's Cultural Revolution. It's everyone afraid of everyone else. Second on the prop, we had Luke Coyle, a true blue unionist. Luke bellowed, man has accomplished more with the mace of fear, more than any other weapon in the repertoire of humanity. Luke said that politicians elicit for peace and love erroneously. The civil rights movement only had the effect it did when the establishment feared the zeal of masses that followed Dr. King. Being feared is the only sword that we have to slay the leviathan of political corruption, he said. Much to the delight of everyone, Luke heavily and almost incontestably implied that Emmanuel Macron is a weak, frog-eating, brie-munching little Napoleon who warrants neither the fear nor respect that he has. Fear has every advantage that respectably boasts, yet none of its disadvantages, he concluded. Second on the opposition, we had Nihal, true optimist. Nihal began, we stand for love over fear, compassion over indifference, peace over intolerance. The proposition claims that fear works, but it doesn't. What happens the moment your back is turned? It buys you obedience, but not loyalty. Nihal referred to the stabbing of Julius Caesar and the Ides of March, stabbed by those he thought to be most loyal, like a scene out of the Litterific, he says. Nihal remarks how fear shuts down trust, creativity and reasoning, and that's why dictators deploy fear, because they cannot control thought. Fear relies on control and empathy. Third on the proposition, we had James Tourish, dressed for a holiday in the French Riviera. James opened by clarifying that he did not raid Jack Steele's wardrobe. James opened by quoting Machiavelli, love and respect are valuable to being lost. In this fallen world of ours, out there exists criminals, murderers, and those who perpetuate injustice against innocent people. Hitler, Stalin, Ted Bundy, and all of my exes. In the world we live in today, respect is currency and fear is power. Tony Soprano learned this lesson. James concluded that fear isn't cruelty, it can be positive, and then said slay diva before returning to Stalingrad. Though I suspect the last two are mutually exclusive references. Third on the opposition, and finally we had Cormac, who opened by stating the simplicity of his opposition. Humans find the state of fear to be unnatural. In contrast, respect is neutral and you don't need to be of equal status to respect someone. Cormac then contrasted the feelings of productivity within fear-based workplaces against the merits of those functioning on respect. When you are feared, you'll be avoided and treated as a threat, but when you are respected, people may seek you out for your wisdom. Who would you rather be remembered alongside, Stalin and Hussein, or Kennedy and Einstein? Then we went to question times. We heard questions from the blue person with a malicious compliance, something about that. We heard from Luke Coyle and Cormac. Then from Elizabeth Noble, we heard replies from Cormac and Rosa. And then abstaining, we heard from Victor, who replied with Luke Coyle and Luca in glasses. Then we moved on to the vote on speakerability with 24 votes for the proposition, 8 votes for the opposition, and 7 abstentions. The proposition carries the motion and it passes. We then had council announcements. Ella McMullen encouraged speakers to sign up for the upcoming debates, such as a chamber workshop at 6 p.m. And Beth Lynham claimed about the Irish novices happening in Dublin and the Durham Ivy coming up. Can I take minutes as read? Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You'd be surprised, there's been longer ones since you've been away, shall we just say that? Spratt those. But yes, so before we get started on the reason you're all here, the spectacle of tonight, the debate, we're first going to carry out our vote of prior opinion. So this is what you all think when you walked in this room tonight about our very motion, which is this house would love thy neighbour. So for all those who agree that this house would love thy neighbour and want to vote for the proposition, please raise your hands now. If you want to raise them nice and high. Yes? And for all those who would not love their neighbour and want to vote for the opposition, please raise your hands now. Is that 9? 11? Yep, we'll go with 11. And then finally, all those who are indifferent towards the motion and would like to abstain from the vote of prior opinion, please raise your hands now. Five. Yes. Mr. Secretary, can I have the results from the votes on prior opinion, please?
Yes, with 46 votes for the proposition, 11 votes for the opposition, and 5 abstentions, the proposition carries and the motion passes.
And before we get started, just a reminder of the rules for our speakers and members of the House tonight. The speakers will take it in turns, proposition and opposition, to step up to the podium and deliver 7-minute speeches. The first minute of their speech and the last minute of their speech is protected time. Once the protected time is over, that will be indicated by a bell. Thank you, Madam Vice President. That means those 5 minutes in between the first minute and the last minute are unprotected time, during which the speaker may be presented with a POI. To offer a POI, simply raise your hand and shout aloud, "On that point, POI or point of information." It is then to the speaker's discretion as to whether they take your POI or not. You must also keep your POIs nice and short, no longer than 15 seconds. And from a POI was last asked or offered, you must leave 15 seconds in between. Otherwise, that's barking. Don't worry, I will keep you right with my trusty gavel. So, without further ado, but there's one more rule for tonight. The speakers themselves must adhere to our swearing rule, which I'll allow Madam Vice President to elaborate on.
So if you swear or piss me off, you will owe the house a bottle of port. You will owe the house a bottle of port if you swear.
I feel unfairly targeted.
And please pay it promptly, or else I will hunt you down.
I can personally attest she's worse than me.
I do, I'm very
She's worse than HMRC.
And after some of the comments that have been made about Ray tonight, I don't want to find out if that's an empty threat if I were any of the speakers. So make sure if you do swear to pay your port fines. But without further ado, I would like to invite to the podium to open for the proposition, Reuben.
Sorry, just let me set up my timer here first, 2 seconds. Good evening, members of the House. The phrase, "love thy neighbour," is a teaching taken straight from the words of Jesus Christ in the Bible. We find the results of this in Christian principles of unconditional, sacrificial love. Tonight, I'll explain what this all means, and we'll also be touching on real-world examples of this love in action, demonstrating how loving our neighbour keeps the world spinning. Where this teaching is followed, there is prosperity, charity, and happiness. Where it is not, poverty, exploitation, and depression abound. I'll begin with the important definition. What is love? It's plain to see humans exhibiting different kinds of love. The way you love your parents is different from the way that you love your spouse, and so on, or at least it should be. Sorry, I apologise, that was off the cuff. So how do we categorise all these different kinds of love? Well, the ancient Greeks had 4 different kinds: storge, philia, eros, and agape. Storge refers to familial love, the bond that exists between parents, children, and other family members. Philia denotes love between friends. It signifies shared interests, beliefs, and mutual respect. Eros is romantic or passionate love that exists between a husband and a wife. And agape is defined as unconditional, selfless love, not based on feelings or personal gain, but a commitment to the well-being of the other. This is the love exemplified by Jesus Christ, who we as Christians believe laid down his life for those who sinned against him. This is the love that I'll focus on this evening. Why am I speaking to the ancient Greeks to define love? Well, simple. This is the original language that the New Testament was written in. By reading this language...
How does your argument appeal to those who don't believe in the Christian view of morality?
Well, I believe that the Christian view of morality, certainly this topic of selfless love, is the only satisfying way of answering this question. That's a first point, although that is a bit subjective, and I argue it's not, but that's neither here nor there. And second point, I'd say that the phrase love thy neighbour is a Christian phrase, so I think it's only appropriate to refer back to Christianity to explain this. In the Gospel of Luke, we find a well-known illustration from Jesus, the parable of the Good Samaritan. In this parable, a man is travelling down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he is violently attacked by bandits. They strip him of his clothes, beat him, and leave him for dead. A priest and a Levite, countrymen of this man, see him lying on the road, but pass to the other side, completely ignoring him. Some time later, a Samaritan finds him, takes pity on the man, and tends to his wounds. He even pays to house the man at a nearby inn so that he may recover fully and in safety, at great expense to himself. The Samaritan did not tend to the wounded man because it was convenient. He did not tend to the wounded man because he felt like it. He did so because he unconditionally loved him, an individual that he never knew. Love is action, deciding to care for others, showing them kindness, and having their best interests at heart. Feelings and emotions come and go. Love stands firm and stays regardless of the environment. This type of love is the foundation of all charities we can think of, from soup kitchens to homeless shelters to Bernardo's and the Salvation Army. In fact, the Queen's Literary and Scientific Society chooses to support a charity each session. Obviously, this work is very important to the House. Furthermore, most schools and hospitals began as philanthropic efforts by the Church. Charity work like this wasn't about pouring money into an endless problem that was never going to go away, but loving their neighbour, to the point where it completely transformed the world around them in very tangible ways. Higher literacy rates and healthier populations are two things, and these are results of the biblical command to love thy neighbour.
On that point, why didn't the church donate to Nazi propaganda?
I believe that those who supported Nazi propaganda were not Christians at all. They were imposters, because if you look into Nazism, I won't spend too long on this because it's like a huge World War II rabbit hole, but if you look into Nazism is basically neo-paganism. So Nazism draws on a lot of pagan myths. So basically, in my view, you can't be a Christian, believe in Jesus Christ and him alone, and also support Nazism. It's like sort of saying a square circle, if that makes sense. This type of love is the foundation of all charity. I just read that, haven't I? Furthermore, most schools and hospitals began as philanthropic efforts by the Church. Charity work like this wasn't about pouring money into an endless problem. I've read that all as well. You'll have to excuse me. And in conclusion, the teaching, love thy neighbour, is essential for us. Agape, unconditional love, isn't just a feeling, it's a practice. It's not just given to those who we know will love us back either. If we only love those who love us back, that is not love, that is not conviction, that's just a transaction, that's just convenience. The world is a dark place, full of evil, violence, and sickness waiting to devour us. If we don't band together in godly love to combat good with evil, wrong way around. This is going to come back to bite me later on in the minutes, isn't it? If we don't combat this evil with good, the world around us would turn into hell, and hell would swallow us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Reuben, for that very fine speech. I'd now like to invite you over to the opposition, Tom, to the podium.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. First of all, I'd like to preface to the members of the wokerati in the audience, also known as the woke brigade that supporting this motion is counterproductive. The proposition today has narrowed the scope of this debate to just the Christian view of life. But I would ask the audience today to remove all previous assumptions. Let the merits of this motion and the motion alone guide your hand today. So, I'd like to ask the question, what do I owe you? I owe you a convincing speech, and in Literific, I certainly owe you a funny speech. Although I'm no comedian, so that particular obligation may not be filled today, unless I inadvertently embarrass myself. Please.
You say remove all the assumptions, all the context, so you want to decontextualize the exact wording of this motion which comes from the Bible. You want to remove that context?
I would like the members of the audience to use their mind and come to their own conclusions. And don't use secondary pieces of authority to come to a moral decision. You should be able to come to the viewpoint you hold based on the arguments for the viewpoint you hold alone. Moving on. I may owe the government my taxes. I may owe my creditors money. One may even owe Madam Vice President a bottle of port. Honest obligations are not insignificant things. The magical thing about love is that love has material obligations. When you love someone, you owe them your support to defend them unequivocally, unwaveringly, and unquestioningly. Love is not just respect. Love is not just charity. Love is not just kindness. It is composed of these obligations. You can respect and be kind to people without loving them. So please allow me to be very clear. When you love someone, there are responsibilities that come with it. So let me ask you my second question. What do you owe a stranger? What do you owe every single person that you may or may not know? Let's just consider a world in which you do owe the obligations associated with love to every stranger. It would be a world in which you are eternally bounded by obligations, a slave to others, a prisoner to the needs of strangers, perhaps even the criminal and the evil. Love is like a heavy iron chain, the weight and length locked around your neck, holding you down. Each burdensome link representing an individual person.
On that point.
As you all know, and have experienced like me, a chain made up of your family and your friends is difficult to bear sometimes, but it is manageable. But carrying up a mountain, an iron chain with 8 billion links around your neck is absurd. It's too heavy of a burden to bear.
On that point.
Please.
To love thy neighbour means everyone will be loving each other. Therefore, everyone is bearing that burden together. Therefore, it's not heavy.
We're talking about the individual. This is on the individual level. You as an individual are called to, by the proposition, to love your neighbour, which means, frankly, to love everyone. So this isn't just a we're all suffering together. This is an actual material thing, to actually love someone. It's dishonest to say otherwise. You owe it to yourself not to add these links to this chain. You owe it to your family, who require your love as well. A world in which you hold the same obligations to strangers than even your own family. A world in which the murderer and the adulterer and the rapist are on the same level as your family in your matrix of loved ones. That is a world that only creates misery and suffering for all. Suffering because people cannot cope with it, physically and mentally. It's like my programming practical assessment. If you focus on everyone's assignment, you will become overwhelmed. That is why everyone focuses on their assignment first, then maybe you help your friends, then maybe you help other people. The proposition has forgotten that love is not an abstract thing. It includes obligations and responsibilities. It means something important. It affects us daily, our mood, our health, our very souls. The motion today under consideration is a difficult one. My heart tells me that I should love my neighbour. I certainly try to. But the problem is, it's too idealistic. I wish I could. I assume you all wish you could too. But we have limited resources, limited time, and a limited conscience, a limited strength to bear our chains. And I'm no gym bro. That doesn't mean I don't respect my neighbour or I'm not kind to my neighbour. But love is something more. Today, the proposition misdirects from the real meaning of love. Charity or empathy can be part of love, but is not love. Today, the proposition belittles love by saying that we can love everyone. But love is built over time by mutual trust and admiration. Love isn't a switch that you can just switch on and off. It's a process. It's a journey up a mountain together, built by shared experience. And it's dishonest to extend that to strangers. It turns love into faux platitudes. It turns love into pity. Love thy neighbour is an abstract moral idea, but it's no way to live. You may say, well, I do live this way. Let me ask you this. Any random stranger, do you admire them? Do you respect them? Do you give them the same level of support, unwavering, unquestioning support, than you would your family? If the answer is no, oppose this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom, for that very fine speech. Now I'd like to call to the podium second for the proposition, Chloe.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, members of the House, today I stand in favour of the proposition that this House would love thy neighbour, a sentiment that our President, Mr. Devaney, may or may not agree with, considering his annoyance at our actual neighbours who insist on starting their construction work every morning at 7 a.m. This statement at first glance appears to be only a nice sentiment, a value only for Christians, or even an unrealistic ideal as argued by the opposition. But in reality, loving your neighbour is about recognising the worth of our fellow human beings, looking past their race, gender or ideologies and recognising them for what they are, humans. This is how we must define neighbour, our fellow human being, no matter who they are or where they've come from. And in doing so, we can see that love is a choice, not a feeling. We choose to love our neighbours, even when it's hard, even when we disagree, and even when society and the world itself tells us to do the opposite. I believe it's important that we have defined the word love. It's not the same thing as liking somebody. We don't have to approve of our neighbours' actions, share their opinions, or even enjoy their company. Love is a moral choice, which we show through actions, a commitment to treat others with compassion, respect and understanding, even when they might not deserve it.
POI?
No, thank you. It obviously comes from the Bible. Jesus said this himself in Marc 12, verse 31. And if we look at Jesus' example, he lived by the statement. He didn't add anything to it. It wasn't conditional. It was unconditional. And in his actions, we see that he talked with society's outcasts. He dined with tax collectors and he treated them all with compassion. He loved those that crucified him. He did not owe us anything, but he, through his own example, through love, died on the cross for us as people. And the Bible further goes on to say in 1 John chapter 3, verse 18, we won't love with words or speech, but with actions. So you might say that's all well and good if you are a Christian, but why should everybody else live by that ideal? Well, because it has become ingrained in legal constitutions and even charters of human rights.
POI?
No, thank you. The moral principle of loving your neighbour suggests every person has worth and deserves compassion and respect simply because they're human. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights begins with, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and right. That is a legal way of saying love your neighbour because they are the same as you. Human rights protect those that we may find the hardest to love, people that are vulnerable, unpopular and disliked. Loving your neighbour applies to those who are marginalised in society and cause us to humanise those who may not align with ourselves. Human rights protect all humans, those who look different to us, those from a variety of different religions, those from different cultures, because we should love our neighbour being our fellow human. Looking past that of the legal and legislation, we see it in the political as well, with humanity's desire for peace instead of war. That's another outworking of our loving our neighbour. History paints a picture of war, but also paints a picture of peace. A desire for a world to be built on cooperation, empathy and mutual respect, love. An example are the peace movements in the 1970s. Millions marched in the streets, protested and campaigned, not because they liked their political opponents or they thought their international rivals' worldview was correct. It's because they loved their neighbour on an international scale. They saw the value in human life and therefore their love for their fellow humans. While we have human rights, the practical outworking of loving our neighbour, there are still people who may think there are those in our society who do not deserve our love. This bound to have come up in thinking this through. How could you love somebody who has committed the most heinous, awful crimes? People, you might say, is like Hitler or Saddam Hussein. And in this context, they're also humans, but we cannot excuse the evil that they have done. Loving them is not condoning their actions. It's rather where we can bring them to justice rather than outworking our revenge and refusing to let our hatred overcome us. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." And then looking back to the legal, they're all like a lot of democratic countries have been set on Christian values and the value of loving your neighbour. The US Declaration of Independence talks about unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is grounded in the principle that human life has value. You protect life, no thank you, because it is precious. You respect liberty because your neighbour deserves freedom as much as you do. Hence, you love your neighbour. Your neighbour is just like you. That's why you think that everything that applies to you should apply to your neighbour. Loving your neighbour is not just a Christian ideal, but has shaped the structures of modern democracies, turning neighbourly love into national values we must act on, and not as a burden, but as we help each other out. Therefore, in conclusion, we should love our neighbour because love is not a feeling. It's a choice we make and we show through our actions. Jesus himself demonstrated love through his actions, choosing to love people despite the wrong they committed. The whole concept of loving your neighbour is upheld in law through human rights, emphasising we're all humans and therefore we should show each other respect and compassion, because loving your neighbour, you love your fellow human being as yourself. We must choose to love each other, even the worst possible people within our society, because we can combat their hatred through the outworking and the practice of our love. To love your neighbour is to recognise that we are all humans which deserve the same love we have for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe, for that very fine speech. I would now like to invite second on the opposition, George, to the podium, please.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to speak once again. I'm sure many people are very excited, considering what I've previously said before. I want to thank the proposition for really illustrating the wet dream of Liberal Democrats, which is where everything is lovely and woke and, there's maybe a Waitrose maybe 2 minutes from you. That's not really the world that we live in. I'm tired of hypotheticals. You're dreaming up a hypothetical world where everything is lovely, everyone's deserving of love. You know what? Okay, that's lovely. I'm sorry to say I did have a speech prepared. I was mainly going to be making a few points. But I realise these people are also quite anti-woke, so I don't want to do some friendly fire here. But I will carry on. There's a lot of things that aren't deserving of love. A lot of people do things that aren't deserving of love. So I'm going to touch on quite a few controversial points, maybe say a few things that may be considered offensive. But you know what? Hey-ho, here we go. So I do recognise this is an uphill battle. People go, oh God, how can you be against loving thy neighbour? You must be awful. Fact is, I am a Tory, so I am used to uphill battles and being seen as relatively evil. So let's hope I can make a good argument. Of course, in an ideal and perfect world, it'd be lovely to love thy neighbour, and I'll admit that it's a desirable goal. But we only need to look at our current government to see that we don't live in an ideal world where you have Keir Starmer, Rachel Fries, and all his other goons and cronies. We don't live in an ideal world with those jokers in charge.
On that point,
go on ahead.
We don't live in an ideal world, but while we spend our time here on Earth, we can strive to make it as ideal as possible.
Oh yeah, don't worry.
Therefore, loving our neighbour.
I'll make it ideal. I've got a few suggestions on what to do. I'm going to comment on how we've had a large amount of immigration into the UK, including significant illegal immigration has led to significant cultural clashes, and I wish to focus on two key areas, including animal welfare and women's rights. To many people's surprise, I'm a vegetarian and have been for the majority of my life. Many people might consider this woke, but I'll assure you it's quite a conservative value. There's quite a few famous anti-woke vegetarians. A prominent one comes to mind, the one that I admire deeply, Alan Clark, of course. I want to discuss the bill that Rupert Lowe MP has put forward to ban non-stun slaughter, which includes both kosher and halal forms of slaughter. How does this relate to the debate? Well, freedom of religion and toleration are important, and why other cultures are deserving of respect and toleration, of course, certain practices should be called out and not loved or tolerated. Non-stun slaughter is such a practice that leaves animals in severe pain and discomfort, and if it wasn't carried out under a religious exemption, it would be illegal under UK law. It's extremely concerning that in the 21st century, religions are getting an opt-out on laws that don't suit them. Looking down south in the recent presidential election, we can see how Heather Humphreys was crucified over her supposed support for fox hunting, a sport that I would argue is significantly less cruel than these forms of slaughter. One point I'd like to make is that I'm from Surrey, and we had the last legal fox hunt before it was banned by woke Tony Blair. I actually do disagree with fox hunting, but I think it's an interesting point to make. There's a lot of religious points being made out of, but there's a number of religious practices which I disagree with. I think the difference in treatment speaks volume to the woke cognitive dissonance. Now, I was planning on calling you guys woke and probably Guardian readers, but I think Matthew Spratt would have a brain aneurysm if I called him a Guardian reader. I know he only reads the Daily Mail. Why, it's the only place where you can get real news around here. Women's rights is also a significant point of contention. Susan Hall, which is quite an amazing lady, one that I've actually met, she looks very good for her age, I'll say. Believe it or not, she's actually 70, but to me, maybe she looks maybe 50, I'm not sure. Very attractive. We've seen certain groups. One that came to prominence was the East London Mosque that ran a fun run, but they banned girls over 12 from participating. We've seen a significant influx of men coming from predominantly men. Not to be sexist, I know everyone knows I'm very pro-women's rights. coming from areas with different cultural standards and different approaches to women's rights, we can see a lack of tolerance and respect in our country building up. But no, it's not against newcomers, it's against us, against our culture and traditions. No cultural group should be segregated from mainstream British life. No religious group should have their own law. We see this with the Sharia courts. In Britain, British law should be supreme and British culture should be supreme. I stress this Go on ahead. I was all this week to love the neighbour. Well, that's a very interesting point. Trust me, it all links back. Because there's certain things we shouldn't love. There's certain things which are morally right and morally wrong. These people would want everyone to be loved no matter what. It's lofty. Well, I'll be honest. Do any of you love all these people? Because I'll tell you, I don't. There's a lot of people I don't love in this world. A lot of people who I consider quite awful people. I think, it would be nice. We should love and tolerate our neighbours on the basis that they love and tolerate us. They want, one thing where we love and respect everyone. I'll respect someone if they respect me. Why do you want to love and tolerate people who go around doing the most heinous, awful things? Yes, of course, it's lovely, it's ideal. We don't live in that world. You know what? I'm tired of hypotheticals. We live in a world where there's bad people. Think about. You know what? I think about World War II, where we actually took on the evils of fascism and National Socialism. Yep, we didn't like them. They were our enemy. What's wrong with a bit of hatred? You need to have that iron in you to be able to take. Well, as Lee Kuan Yew said, whoever governs Singapore must have that iron fist in him. And I say we need to have an iron fist to those who oppose our values. With that, I'll probably conclude my remarks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you, George, for that very exciting speech.
Thank you.
I would like to call for the proposition Isabella to the podium, please.
Good evening to this esteemed House, the Council, and guests. What the proposition brings before you tonight is a concept that has existed since time immemorial as part of religious and secular societies. Love thy neighbor is not merely a golden rule, the greatest commandment of Christianity, or an ideal this proposition takes seriously. It has socio-political impacts where even if one lacks faith, it must and does become action. It's even beneficial to our health and something that's deeply personal to me. The neighbor in this case includes that next-door neighbor who's a twat, because neighbor applies to every human being. Prior to the immortal words spoken by Jesus in Matthew 22:39, the ancient Greeks believed that strangers could be gods in disguise. Therefore, giving someone a place to stay, sharing the fruits of your labor, and even offering a bed to sleep in meant you could be blessed for your goodwill. And they called this xenia. In the myth of Philemon and Baucis, the eponymous elderly couple takes an incognito Zeus and Hermes for a night after multiple rejections. For the couple's hospitality, they are rewarded handsomely, with a temple to steward, serving as high priest and priestess until the end of their days. A happy ending in a rather typically tragic Greek myth. This idea later morphed into strangers possibly being angels, and is characterized in the unfortunate tale of Sodom and Gomorrah, where angels in disguise were not welcome, much like in the Greek myth mentioned earlier. Cities were destroyed as a result of a lack of loving thy neighbor. If cities toppling down is a steep price to pay for not loving thy neighbor, I don't know what is. And there's a theme, if you catch on. Loving thy neighbor is associated with Christianity and other Abrahamic religions, but the idea to treat everyone with compassion is not unique to them. No, thank you. For example, Buddhism emphasizes tolerance as part of living a life in harmony with oneself and the world. Populations in Latin America and Africa highlight the strength of communal bonds. Ubuntu among the tribes of the southern region of the continent was the foundation of the late great Reverend Desmond Tutu's lifelong pursuit of human rights and reconciliation after apartheid. I am because we are is the tagline of Ubuntu. Without each of us building each other up, we are nothing. At the risk of sounding cliche and thinking of Satine and Christian in Moulin Rouge, love lifts us up where we belong. Even atheistic concepts reveal a desire to love thy neighbor, or at the very least, human beings desire a respect of their worth. Thomas Hobbes writes in the Leviathan that the state of nature is nasty, brutish, and short. He argues the only way to escape this cycle is through a government. And because by establishing a government, you can love thy neighbor by putting in safeguards to protect human beings from themselves. Look around our more democratic nations. More secular liberal societies promote universal tenets of liberty, justice, and equality for all. These principles exist without religious rationale or intend to be irreligious. Whether nations and institutions keep these promises is a different question, but the ideas are present nonetheless. Loving thy neighbor is not new. No, thank you. And should be continued to be practiced or re-emphasized, regardless of religious affiliation or lack thereof. Science provides another reason why we should love thy neighbor. According to studies done by Harvard, doing acts of kindness benefits mental and physical health by reducing stress and blood pressure, boosting overall mood, and other positive benefits. Acts of kindness can include giving people compliments, opening the door for the person behind you, tipping a waitress trying to keep up with busy tables, and whatever simple act comes to mind. Love really is a medicine. Back home, I co-founded a business in the psychedelic mushroom industry. I often say jokingly that my line of work is getting people high to deal with their issues. But actually, psychedelic therapy works, as supported by research conducted by Johns Hopkins and the University of London, and also roughly 1,500 clients can back that up as well. People often leave their mushroom journeys feeling grateful and loving towards the people in their lives. They start connecting more with family, friends, and strangers because connection makes us feel better. I also know this to be a case as the romance writer. Despite what Hallmark showcases in a cookie-cutter holiday movie, love is not just a couple kissing under the stars. Love is chemical, love is familial, love extends to friendship, love is respect and courtesy. When we are respected and others feel respected as well, we are all the better for it. No, thank you. Now on to an additional point and why this is so deeply personal to me. Spoiler, like many of my fellow proposition, I am a Christian, if you couldn't tell. I've never found the Bible to be clear on a lot of things, but when Jesus Christ declares, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, with all your strength, and the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Mark 12:30-31. I take that to heart and ensure all I do is in love. 1 Corinthians 16:14. Love becomes a call to action. The way the Bible talks about welcoming the stranger and the immigrant, healing the sick on the Sabbath, to sitting with the marginalized reflects how I want to live. Thus, I vote in a particular way and do daily acts of kindness for my neighbors. Grace is the heart of love thy neighbor in Christianity. Grace is a universal and beautiful thing, since the darkness in all of us makes us undeserving, but we can receive grace nonetheless. We are all doing the best we can, all of us, regardless if we let our worst aspects get the better. That includes, once again, your actual mirror being a twat, or you are stressed, in turn, having a knee-jerk reaction to a comment your friend made. We've all been there. We all have a story. We are more than our present circumstances, even our past. We all need grace, whether it be from God, each other, or even ourselves. It goes against our nature to love thy neighbor, to extend grace to others. We seek fairness rather than compassion for the most part. Eye for an eye is fair, not compassionate. It is a challenge to love thy neighbor regardless of circumstances. Nothing ever worth doing comes naturally. With all that being said, I'm not here to convert or impose my religious beliefs. It's to reveal that there's more to love thy neighbor than just a syrupy platitude, whether you believe God commanded it or not. It is far more political and profound. It's even healthy. It's something that has permeated the subconscious of civilizations for millennia, regardless of human nature or its faults. From Jesus' life, the practice of Xenia, the wisdom of Ubuntu, or how we feel, loving thy neighbor spans history and geography. We must follow the steps already imprinted in the sand. I hope these points made by myself and so eloquently by the previous proposition speakers illuminates why this motion must be passed. May you side with the proposition tonight and love thy neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella, for that very fine speech. I would now like to call third on the opposition, Marc, to the podium, please.
ladies and gentlemen. The proposition have had you imagine a world where everyone always loved the people around them. They have had you believe that in this fantasy, relationships grow stronger, people get kinder, and that love grows fonder. Now, throughout all the proposition speeches so far, they have referenced Christianity to support their argument. But I really doubt that everyone in this room is Christian. And I also don't believe that we've all had the same background or worldview. But there is something that we all have in common, and that is the human experience. Unless you're some sort of illegal alien, then I can't speak for you. So that's what I'm using in this argument. Let me paint a picture of the realities of a world where we all love our neighbors. Now, this is an emotional story, a tragic tale, and one that has led me to ponder the topic ever since. I want you to imagine that time has gone backwards. You've been transported back into year 2 of school and have returned to what may be the most challenging maze you've ever navigated, the school playground dominance hierarchy. Now, not to show off my tactics, but here's how I made my way to the top. Here's how it worked. So every little kid in the schoolyard, they spent their recesses going down this one particular slide. It was the biggest one. Everyone wanted to go on it. Now, if you wanted to establish your dominance in the playground, what you would do is you'd go to the top with your gang of friends and you would sit there, block the slide, no one else gets on, this is now your territory. And so I did that. My 8-year-old self and my gang of... Huh?
On that point?
Yes.
You went to school and thought, I am going to assert dominance.
I was always ambitious from a young age. Next is Europe, right? Okay. And so I did that, right? My 8-year-old self and my other gang and my gang of 8-year-olds, we went up the stairs to the top and we sat there. All was good. We were establishing our presence. Then all of a sudden, my senses tingled. A rival gang had appeared. My enemies had come to take the slide for themselves. So I locked eyes with the leader of the rival gang and I stood up. It was clear that soon one of us would be heading to the nurse's office for a Band-Aid. Violent, I know. A crowd formed, cheering erupted. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to fight for my slide, and then all of a sudden, like Caesar, I was betrayed. My own friend, who I now only remember as Brutus the traitor, dared to have the audacity to step in between us. He pulled me aside and said, Marc, you should be nice. Marc, you should respect others even if you don't like them. I wouldn't want you to absolutely destroy him with your huge muscles. He actually said that. From that day on, I could not call Brutus a friend, because it was clear to me that he not only loved me, but he loved everyone, including my enemy. What good is Brutus's love if everyone can have it? What good is your love if it is not selective? The reason that I loved Brutus is because if he ever had an enemy in the playground, I would have been the first to follow him into the battlefield, because I love my friends and I don't love my enemies. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't have love without hate. The reason that the first Americans loved the idea of America is because they hated British control. The reason you love going out with your friends is because you hate being bored. The reason that I hate Real Madrid is only because I love Liverpool. I don't love strangers or people who aren't my friends because I reserve that privilege for my friends.
On that point?
Yeah.
Does that mean you hate everyone who's not your friend?
Whoa. It is not just love and hate. It is a spectrum. So the word hate just means less love. There's no such thing as hate. There is more or less love. I want to make that clear. It's a very polar term. And we can't have more of that in this world. So where are we? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about this. If you saw 2 people in the street, strangers, about to fight just like I did in the schoolyard, I'm sure that the most that you would do, if anything, is to try and split them up. You wouldn't dare think about helping one side over the other, because you don't love one of them more than the other, which is the right response when dealing with randoms. Now, that situation, which I described when dealing with strangers, is exactly how Brutus treated me, a friend in the schoolyard. He loved both me and my enemy, and treated us as equals, as if I was a stranger to him, when he should have, as George said, had an iron fist. His love for our friendship was meaningless because he also loved the people he wasn't friends with. I'm sure you give special privilege to your friends over strangers because you love them more. If you loved everyone, you would have your friends over to bake cookies while also calling some strangers off the side of the road to come in too. Imagine if I'm yapping to my friend Flynn about how our point of view is so much better than the propositions and that we are so right and they are so, so wrong. I'm expecting him to back me up. But imagine if he said, actually, we both have strong points. Like, are you even on my side, Flynn? Are you even my friend? Or are you also friends with the enemy? Does your friendship even count at that point? Yes.
Do your friends always have to agree with you?
They don't have to agree, but they have to give me privileges over people who aren't my friends. Because then what's the point of a friendship or love? Now, you may be wondering, oh, but Mark, just because you don't love someone doesn't mean that you can't respect them. And I have touched on this before. That statement means that love is one thing, respect is another, and hate is a third. But let's make this simple. Love is when you respect someone very, very much, and hate is on the other side when you respect someone very, very little. As I said, it is a spectrum. So by extension, hate just means to love less. Instead of saying, I hate Real Madrid, I can simply say, oh, I just love them less. Instead of saying, I hate the schoolyard rival gang, I can say, oh, I love them, but less. So the proposition I've said that regardless of if you love them or not, you should respect all of your neighbors. But when you agree that there are some people that you respect more than others, and when your relationships are tested, wouldn't you side with the person that you respect more? Isn't that what my friend Brutus should have done? To fight on my side in the schoolyard because he loves and respects me, his friend, more than my rival? Ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as love without hate or less love. There is no joy without pain, nor can you have a rainbow without a little rain. You see, for your love and respect to mean something is for that love and respect to be selective, because not everyone can have it. You can't love the ideas of proposition and opposition at the same time. And Reuben himself said that you can't love Jesus and support Nazi propagandism at the same time. And you can't have meaningful love that gets handed out to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc, for that very fine speech. And now to close for the proposition, I would like to invite Matthew to the podium, please.
It's time to cook, people. It's time to cook. Shalom, namaste, friends. You like that, right, don't you? Alrighty. Let's see, where's my speech? I haven't actually prepared a speech. I just thought we would go with the vibes. So, let's see, where are we starting? This house would love thy neighbour. Firstly, what is love? Our Lord's word, Scripture, says that love is patient. Love is kind. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always protects us, trusts always, hopes always, and always preserves. Do you know what else is love? What our Lord did on the cross. Isn't that base? Our Lord died for us on the cross, and he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. The second commandment follows, love your neighbour as yourself, for love is the fulfilling of the law. And normally I would harshly rebuke the wokerazzi over here, but you're not that woke, and I love you, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to rebuke you gently, because that is actually partially what love is. Right, let's skip a few pages.
On that point.
Yes, George.
I have a maybe slightly unrelated question.
Well, I'm not. If it's unrelated, I'm not taking it. Tory Tom, let's deal with you first, big son. Right, you want to remove the context of the motion. He says, get rid of the Bible, remove all the context. It's a Christian motion. You want to censor it. That's not very Tory-like. Go for it.
Well, this isn't a Christian audience. It might have many Christians in it, but there's many diverse viewpoints here.
Yes, we love diversity. It's a Christian motion, though, but who's sitting here doesn't change the motion. You discuss a parallel universe where we're obligated to love. Well, I'm going to give you a parallel universe now, and I hope you like it. So, war. Global conflict rates Thanks for the snorting, right? Global conflict rates are at the highest since World War II. There's a total of 59 active conflicts across 35 countries and 152,000 conflict-related deaths recorded in 2024 alone. Imagine that throughout all of time since it was conceived. If we loved our neighbours, there wouldn't be war, there wouldn't be all this death. Instead, we would be building each other up.
On that point.
No, thank you, mein Führer. Now, let's see, where are we next? Yes, Tom. Tom's love is material. Yes, it is material, as we've already discussed. Love is patient, love is kind, and so forth. And we've had, what is loving about loving murderers? God's fundamental nature is love. What comes with that is justice. He loves each and every one of us, for we were created in his own image. And just as our parents love us and discipline us when we go wrong, our Lord does the same with us, and that is love, and we do that with our friends as well. Now, George, should love be... love and tolerance, you are making them synonymous. They're definitely not. To tolerate something is not to love, and to love is not to tolerate. And we've seen that as Christ went into the temple, flipped the tables, and cracked the whip. Mega base that was. So, George, thank you, Reuben. And George, you know, I love you, not in a sus way, but like, you're a great guy. And like, you know, when you walk in the door, it's going to be an exciting day. So, anyway, right. Mopey Marc is still salty about Et tu, Broody. What age are you, Marc? He doesn't even know what age he is. How the flip's he meant to say what love is? Lock in, Marc. You can't have love without hate, Marc shouts. 2 seconds later, he says, guys, there's no such thing as hate. Bro, you're cooked. You said that. Come on.
Hate and less love are synonyms. It's the same word.
Hate and love are synonymous.
No, hate and less love.
Mr. President, can I permit back and forth? Is that allowed? Is that permissible?
Hate and less love are synonymous.
That made no sense at all. Righty-ho. So yes, you're still salty about your friend, Marc. We know that. Flynn, I can't wait to hear what you say. I'm going to POI the crap out of you. Right. Famine. There's 730 million... You're not going to POI famine, Flynn. 733 million people sadly live in the world. In famine. Shut up, Ray. You're making me laugh. 2.33 billion people globally face moderate or severe food insecurity. There is enough resources in the world for us to solve all of this straight away. Instead, we are selfish, we are greedy, and we do not care about other people. And if we go back to the definition of love, it says, love is patient, love is kind, love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, and it always preserves. I am trying to put forward to you this parallel universe, Tom. Sadly, we don't live in this loving universe because, sadly, we have all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But if we strived to have this sort of love, we would eradicate famine. We would eradicate war. And we would eradicate poverty. Now, there's a lot of the world in poverty. And soon, because of radical left loony mondani, New York will be as well. But anyway, 1/5 of the UK population, and for those who aren't mathematicians in the room, that's 20%. And that means that it's 14 million people in the UK are living in poverty. 613 million people live in global poverty. And I'm not a mathematician, I'm a HAP student, my degree is pretty useless, but I know that that's a lot of people. And I know that we should be loving these people. And Scripture tells us, Jesus says, I command you, you shall open wide your hand to brother, to the needy, and give to the poor. So if we love our neighbour as ourselves, we can transform the world. Instead of a world that is downtrodden, is that 7 minutes?
Yeah.
Great stuff. I'm not going to do the Jeff Dugin like the unionist debate and go on for a wee while yet. So I'll conclude here because I also need the toilet shortly as well. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, for that very fine speech. You're so welcome. Now, to close the debate and close the case for the opposition, I would like to invite Flynn to the podium, please.
Give me a moment, I've got so many pieces of paper here. Okay. I've got big shoes to fill, turns out. I just want to start off by thanking Matthew for the mass that he gave us at the start of his speech. Okay, let's start. Ladies and gentlemen, organ, drum kit, which, yeah, it's still there, and dashing Devaney. Yeah. Oh, wait, I've been getting mixed up. I apologise if this is a bit short. I wrote this in like 90 minutes, having the unfortunate pleasure of having to watch two lovebirds passionately making out in front of me for the half the time.
Did you get the Spratt then?
Yes, I did. Tonight we debate a very short motion. 3 words. Love thy neighbour? ? Let's define love. The spectacle that took place before me when I wrote this. Thy, a pretentious way of saying your. Neighbour, in biblical use, it is any person in need of one's help or kindness. Biblical, pertaining to the famous fictional book, the Bible.
Yeah.
My sense of humour, statements not to be taken seriously. So, before I start, I have a fun fact for you all. This is just a waste of time. Did you know the phrase, love thy neighbour, does not contain the word magnetohydrodynamically? I can tell that things are going well. I am not saying that you should hate your neighbour, although I just did.
No.
What I'm saying is that love is a strong emotion. It's a word used to describe the relation. Apparently, it's a word used to describe the relationship with your neighbour. I don't like this definition, especially.
On that point.
No. I think I missed out a word there, but it's like saying I hate Blaker Noble. But I just don't know him. Love is a strong emotion, just like hate. An emotion greater and stronger than just liking someone. To love someone, you have to like them first. If you don't believe this, it isn't love, it's infatuation. The opposition presents a definition of love that is as vivacious as the Liberal Democrats.
Oh, sorry.
I have missed out one, I think. Yes, I have. Love is a lot of hard work. It is difficult to be nice to everyone you meet. Sometimes I just want to rip someone's head off. Expecting not to do that all the time is unreasonable. But the proposition will say, but if everyone loved each other, loved thy neighbour, we wouldn't feel that way because they would respect you. Yeah. No. Yeah, maybe in your fairy tale land, but welcome to the real world, kiddos. Let's move on and talk about France. Because if you are Matthew Ian Paisley, Spratt, and believe in the Union, France is our neighbour. Why should we apply love thy neighbour principle to them?
You shouldn't.
France is like someone whose casual attire consists of a tuxedo, Crocs and baseball cap. And when asked why on earth they wear it, they take it as a personal attack and call you weird for wearing jeans and a t-shirt.
Why should the love thy neighbour? I've just repeated that again, haven't I? Let's move on. France also has strange food, such as steak tartare, which is raw minced beef with raw egg on it, also known as Gordon Ramsay's nightmare. Then they have ortolan bunting, where they take a small ortolan, force feed it, drown it in cognac, and then roast it and eat it whole with bones and all. Why should we respect and care for a country that performs psychopathic behaviour? And I know I say country, but what if this was a person? Should I really care, respect, and show compassion to someone so vindictive and antisocial and sociopathic? Don't mention the war. Oh, that's fine. Let's talk about some other French things that demonstrate love thy neighbour is a terrible idea. France has the third highest infidelity rate in Europe. Infidelity is most socially acceptable in France, more socially acceptable than any other country in Europe. I guess being French, it brings love thy neighbour a new meaning. Popular pastimes in France, including robbing museums, being angry, and chopping people's heads off. They also have the worst security systems in the world. If you didn't know, the password for the entire security system of the Louvre is just Louvre. This highlights another personality trait of France, that they are untrustworthy. If someone is untrustworthy, if you show respect, compassion, and care to that person, they can use it against you. Love thy neighbour is a fundamentally terrible idea if you don't want to be taken advantage of. No. I instead propose tolerate thy neighbour. Remain sceptical. I am very sceptical. And don't immediately start showing respect and compassion. Respect is earned. It is earned. But this also goes for trust and compassion. Remember, you are more important to yourself than any other person. Be a bit selfish and don't treat everyone like they are you, because they aren't. And lastly, if you've booked a holiday to France, please cancel it. And I haven't finished yet. I was premature. No, I'll tell one joke. France, that's my joke. Thank you, everybody. Oh, and Matthew, just for you.
Are you flirting? Thank you, Flynn, for that very fine speech.
Daniel, I've never seen Daniel, can I please share something which I think is quite interesting?
I think you shared enough, Matthew. Go on ahead then.
Flynn's little paper airplane. The Bible also, I'm glad you're reading scripture, Flynn. The Bible also says, 1 Peter chapter 2:18, slaves in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerable, but also to those who are harsh. Is this? I regret reading that. No, I'm joking. Is this true? Nice argument.
Thank you, Mr. Spratt, for that bonus track to Flynn's speech. Now we shall cut to questions. So this is your chance as members of the House to ask questions to either the proposition or the opposition. Maybe it's something you would like them to expand upon on their argument, or maybe it's an argument you thought wasn't entertained during the debate. So do I have any questions, first of all, for the proposition, please? We'll go, yep.
My question is for the first two speakers for the opposition.
Oh, proposition question first. That's quite all right. Yep.
So I guess my question to the opposition, and it comes back to the last reality of the opposition's argument, is that in today's society we live in like a very atomized society, very individualistic society, in which we don't know our names anymore. Like if you live in a HMO in Belfast, you would rarely interact with your neighbours. Everyone just, you barely might even know some people you live with. So like, how can you love someone we don't really know them, or we don't really know our neighbours anymore?
Yep, good.
That's a great point from Ryan, actually. It's very sad to see the world that we live in now, where we don't necessarily know my neighbours. Frequently I chat to my granny about this, and she's like, Matthew, back in the day when she was growing up, she's like 70 now, that they used to know their neighbours, they would have been around for each other's houses and for tea and chat and stuff. I have a few elderly neighbours, and it's lovely, we still do that and stuff. And it is very sad, but to necessarily love someone doesn't mean that you excessively have to know them. You can meet someone on the street who has lost something, and you can help them find something. Earlier on today, I didn't get dinner because there was a woke vegetarian meal in my house tonight. So I ordered pizza and didn't have any cash. I just was going to pay by card, but the pizza man arrived and was like, I only take cash. So Isabella, who we just met for the first time tonight, lent me some cash. So loving our neighbour can be small deeds to strangers as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be with the people that we live next door with, who we know or we don't know. It's just a simple act of devotion or assistance to someone else. But it's a very valid point, Ryan.
Thank you, Matthew. Would someone from the opposition? Yes, Mark?
Okay, so you just gave the example about Elizabeth.
Isabella.
Sorry.
Elizabeth.
No, I'm sorry. Isabella, Isabella lent Matthew cash for the pizza, but in doing so, thank you for that. In doing so, she has shown love to you, and she cannot hand out $5 in cash to everyone in this room. Her love was selected. She couldn't do that for everyone here. So, for you to love someone, you're by helping them out or whatever, you're also depriving other people of that privilege.
Thank you, Mark. I'll take that question for the opposition now.
Do the first two members of the opposition realise that the motion was love thy neighbour, the individual, and not love thy neighbour's actions?
Would someone from the opposition care to respond?
Certainly. So we're not saying that we should. We're not arguing that the reason we have a problem with love thy neighbour is that we shouldn't love thy neighbour's actions. What we're saying is that the burden of loving every single neighbour is impossible. You have obligations to your family. You have obligations to yourself. You can't love everyone. And so you need to be selective. And love is a personal thing. It's something you build over time. Love is a way to describe a relationship. It isn't a switch you turn on or off.
Thank you, Tom. Would someone from the proposition like to respond?
I thought we were moving on. Love, what was your question again?
Love thy neighbour, the individual, not their actions.
Yes. When we love someone, our natural prerogative is to have their best interest at heart. So to love your neighbour, to love someone else, means that you support them when they're right, and you call them out when they're wrong, and you say, you know what, no, this isn't right, you need to change this, or you shouldn't do that again. So that answers your question.
Thank you, Matthew. And then finally, I'll take an abstaining question. So this is a question put fairly to both the proposition and the opposition. So for instance, if your question starts with, well, this applies more to the opposition, or, well, this applies more to the proposition, that's not an abstaining question. And don't worry, you'll know it's not an abstaining question because I have my gavel and pretty good aim. So let's just say you'll find out. So, does anyone have an abstaining question? No.
They don't want to scrutinize.
Yes.
If it wasn't for Christianity, would we be having this debate?
Okay, yep. So if it wasn't for Christianity, would we be having this debate? We'll start with the proposition, if someone would like to respond. Yeah, Isabella?
There is a reason why I talked about even being a Christian myself. I talked about other traditions and other philosophies, because probably most likely with this wording we probably would be having this conversation, but there's been I think there's something in human beings that even if we don't act on it, we know that treating people well is something we should do. And so I think that that's kind of an innate thing in all of us. Regardless if we act on it, it's a different question, but I think Christianity is going to be a big part why we're having this conversation, and probably the most obvious example of it, but no, most certainly not. I don't think it's just because of Christianity.
Thank you, Isabella. Would someone
And I
from...
would like to add to that
I'm
as
afraid
well.
you can't, Reuben, because it's one person. Yes. Would someone from the opposition? Yes, Tom?
Well, regarding the hypothetical that if we didn't know about Christianity, would we be having this discussion? It's not for me to say. I'm not one for hypotheticals, but I would like to say that the proposition today have based their entire argument on Christianity. And that's all well and good. But we're here today to discuss the actual moral claim being made. We need to remove our assumptions and remove our religious views from the equation and actually consider whether this thing we're considering is right. We can't just seek an argument from authority. We need to determine ourselves, using reason, whether this has would love thy neighbour.
Thank you, Tom. And before we get to the vote on speakerability, I would just like to say, I'm sure I speak for the House when I say this, that we thank all 8 of the speakers, especially considering 3 delivered their maiden speech at this podium today. So I'd like to give them all a round of applause. And now it is on to the vote on speakerability. So this is not which side you personally agree with most. This is the side you thought presented best, used the best rhetoric, had the best arguments, had the best teamwork on their side, and also engaged with the POIs and the questions the best in your view. So can I have all those who would like to vote for the proposition on the vote of speakerability, please raise your hands now. You can also vote for yourselves. (31). And can I have all those who would like to vote for the opposition on the vote of speakerability, please raise their hands now. (17). Go 17. And then finally, can I have all those who would like to abstain on the vote of speakerability, please raise your hands now. (7). Mr. Secretary, can I have the results from the vote on speakerability, please?
Yes, with 31 votes for the proposition, 17 votes for the opposition, and 7 abstentions. The proposition carried and the motion passes.
Yes, congratulations. I have more great news as well, that the fun does not just stop when we finish our debate and our ordinary meeting tonight. We are very much a social society as well as a bit of an academic one and an active one. So we will all be heading to Lavery's after this debate. Whether you want to drink or not is up to you, but it's good to have a bit of fun, a bit of fellowship with everyone and to get to know some new people or new faces that you've seen tonight. We also are a very active society. Again, I'd urge you to scan that QR code, but I'd like to take the opportunity tonight to go through some council announcements. Now, you may be aware that some council aren't here at the moment. That is because they are competing in the Irish Times, and we'd like to wish them the best of luck on that. I'd also like to congratulate Grania and Cormac, who have both qualified for the quarterfinals of the Irish Times, which will be held here at Queen's, so congratulations to them. The great news is, competing for the Terrific doesn't just end at the Irish Times. I believe there are a lot of people at this very table and in this very house who are maiden speakers this year, so that just means that this year is your first time speaking at the Terrific. If that's the case, I would implore you to take part in the Godkin competition. Now, the Godkin is on the 20th. The main motion for the final is this House supports nuclear disarmament. But if you haven't seen the group chat, the motion for our pre-round to select the 8 speakers that will reach the final is... Can I have a drum roll, please? This House would prefer a world without prisons. So, if you would like to take part in the Godkin, which I implore you all to do, it's a great opportunity to compete at the Terrific, then... Next Wednesday, the 12th of November, at I believe 6 or 7 p.m, we will be in the PFC, and that will be the first round of that. So get your speeches ready, and we'll hopefully see what you bring to the table next week on that. We also take part in BP competitions, which are a bit different in style to this, but very easy to pick up, I find. And the good news is they're novice friendly. The next one we have is the Irish Novices, which is at Dublin on the weekend commencing the 29th of November. We also have an event on the 25th of November. There's so many things, it's hard to remember sometimes, but we have an event on the 25th of November. We will be hosting 2 archbishops, Archbishop Martin and Archbishop McDowell, which will be a very interesting event. And finally, you might notice on the term cards that we have for the 27th of November, the motion, this House would separate the art from the artist. However, I can reveal that that's wrong, because instead, I'm going to mention the C word, guys. We're having our Christmas party on the 27th of November instead. Yes, It's something to be very excited about. So that motion, this house would separate the art from the artist, because I know we have a lot of interest for that, will be on the 11th of December, but we will be having our Christmas party on the 27th of November. Now, more details are to be confirmed. What I can tell you is that we will be putting out a poll in the WhatsApp group, so if you haven't joined it already and you'd like to come to the Christmas party and just get involved, please join the WhatsApp group. That QR code's the gateway to do so. But also what I can reveal is that we will be going for a cocktail dress code at the Christmas party. The Christmas party will involve some festive themed debates, which will be exciting to get involved in, and that myself and council may or may not be dressing up as elves. So there is a lot of fun to be had. Yes, you are. There's a lot of fun. Because the best way to spread Christmas cheer is sing loud for all to hear, Ray, of course. So, hopefully we will see you guys there at the Christmas party, and I believe that is all the business for the council members who are absent from tonight. Do we have any other council announcements from those of you who are present? Yes, Mr. Schools?
Just on behalf of James Turrish, our events officer tonight, as Daniel's already alluded, the 25th of November, the Archbishop talk. For those that are religious, for those who are not religious, it's going to be a great event either way, to ask questions, to listen, to learn a few things. It's particularly interesting time at the minute in the Anglican Church with the appointment of the new Archbishop being Sarah Malawi, and also in the Catholic Church with the reaffirming and reordering of recent Catholic doctrine. So if you're interested in that, come along. And if you're not interested in that as well, there's plenty of things to learn, and there'll be opportunities as well to potentially ask questions as well, and to speak with the two most important church leaders on this island. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any other, Madam Vice President?
Yes, just plugging this in for Henry as well, which you forgot. Shame on you. Sorry, that was me. Anyways, okay, so Mondays we are also doing BP sparring as well, so you're not fully thrown into Irish novices and like, what's going on? So you're going to know what BP is if you go to BP sparring. It's practice, and it's really helpful, and we need people to go, so please go. For every fate, I give feedback. So for the maidens, I encourage you to come to me and ask for feedback. I will give it to you in a nice way.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Vice President. So yes, just to summarise once again, scan the QR code for all the info we've talked about. Archbishops on the 25th. On the 27th, the Christmas party, which will be great fun, great crack. A lot of fun will be had there. So I'd encourage you to sign up for that once we put that poll out. 29th, we have the BP competition, and as Madam Vice President alluded to, we'll be doing BP sparring sessions with our great external convener, Henry, and you'll be in safe hands with him to prepare you for the Irish novices. So please get involved, and of course the Godkin, which is our own rhetoric chamber-based competition, which will be, again, a great spectacle. So please get involved. And finally, because our philosopher of wines isn't here, I will see all of you hopefully at Lavery's. Can I have council members stay behind to set up the room, and our wonderful speakers up to the front, please? Thank you very much. I call this meeting adjourned.